We're live. Okay, so what's happened today? So my wife is working on a project. I think she's responding to a survey that our city put out, and their goal is to become carbon neutral. I think that's still the term, carbon neutral. Uh, they're aspiring to be a city that can claim to be carbon neutral, and they want to not carbon neutral, almost the same thing, net zero carbon emissions, and they want to be able to do that by 2030. So they have a project and they were taking some feedback from people on how to meet their goal of being net zero. Very quickly, net zero, different interpretations of what that means. Net zero is not the same thing as not burning fossil fuels. It means that you're burning fossil fuels and you're emitting some CO2 into the atmosphere, but over here in another part of the spreadsheet, we're drawing down CO2. Okay. So net of net, your emissions are equaled by your drawdown. And so you're still kind of where you started. You're still at what they want to call zero baseline. So, okay, fine. That's a goal. It still means that you're burning fossil fuels. You're still emitting carbon, and you're really hoping and praying that when you do your drawdown part, that fixes it. Okay. So what is this technology? I don't know what they're talking about. Drawdown. No idea. I don't think they have any idea. It's just a goal. It's aspirational. All right. It's something. It's something which is obviously infinitely more than nothing. Even a tiny something is more than nothing. So we'll allow that it's a something. And so they had 5 points here. I'm looking at a list that she wrote for me because she wanted me to comment on this. So the areas in which they are planning on emphasizing work or progress will be they call this home energy, transportation, food and waste, water, and community action. So, yeah, fairly broad categories. I immediately said, "Oh, I see." So basically, the old uh, energy efficiency and recycling uh, bid, right? They want us to be more energy efficient, twisty bulbs or whatever that translates to, and they want us to be um, they want us to recycle. They want to reduce the waste stream. And there's lots of reasons to do that. You have to pay to dispose of the waste. So if you can reduce the waste stream by reusing and recycling, then that's groovy. Now, energy efficiency and basically recycling and waste reduction, these have been memes since I was a child, basically, right? I mean, we were talking about conserving energy, turning off. I remember the PG&E ads: turn off the lights when you leave the room. I mean, that's 60s and 70s stuff, right? So this is not that forward looking. And now, okay, fast forward 40 years, we're all grown up now. Fast forward 40 years, and the things are getting a bit more desperate, right? So we're going to go back to say, what have we talked about when I was a kid? Energy efficiency and recycling and waste reduction. Okay, let's bring those back up and let's modernize them and get them back out there for more people to understand the importance of these things. Okay, fine. I'm way beyond that. Uh, I think that net zero is slightly a cop out. I mean, go ahead, try to do that. You're still consuming fossil fuels, and no, you don't know how you're going to remove your emissions from the atmosphere. You don't have a plan to do that. You have an aspiration to do that, but that's not the same thing as having a plan. I'm an engineer, and I know what that involves, and it doesn't involve aspirational hand waving and you know rainbows, okay? Singing kumbaya. That's not going to get rid of your emissions. Um, and as an engineer, I can speak to that, okay? You're not doing that. You think you're doing that. You're planning on doing that. People are willing to sell you a solution, snake oil or something, and you think you're going to do that. You're not going to do that. So my solution is that we must abandon our reliance on fossil fuels, period, straight up, cold turkey. 5 little words: leave it in the ground. Five things you have to do. You must leave it in the ground. That's how you reduce your emissions. And that's not net zero, that's zero, an actual number, not an aspirational goal. We're going to aspire to remove CO2 from the atmosphere somehow, alien technology or, something. Yeah, well, whatever. Okay. Or you could just leave it in the ground, right? You could do that too. I understand the problems with leaving it in the ground. That's why I am on here on YouTube doing this periodic thing I do, trying to noodle through as best I can how we do that. I know it's going to be painful. It's going to be destructive. It's going to be annihilating. We have to do it anyway. Sorry. We have to do that. We can't do the other things. We can leave it in the ground. It will be painful. It will be devastating. It will be immoral. It will be unjust. It will be a lot of terrible things. Anything you want to call it. Anything you want to call it. Go ahead and call it everything. Call me everything. I'm the source of all the terrible things. Okay. I am the Visigoth. I am the whatever. We're going to have to do it anyway. This is our future. So let me take their points, their 5 points. You can't even read them because of the lighting is so bad. Anyway, let me talk about these in the context of what actually would work. Okay. Not just net zero, like, recycling and waste management and energy efficiency to get us to net zero, but to actual zero, real zero, an actual zero. And where I'm heading with all this is a concept that I've been calling getting to the lifeboats, which in practical translation means promoting village life, hyper-local village life, meaning nobody has to drive, nobody has to fly, no companies to set up offices, okay, and fly all their employees in and fly all their CEOs in. We all live locally, we all live together. It's more communal than it is now, although you could certainly call it, extended family if you want to. And we manage ourselves in a very, very local way, very local, extremely local. And that cuts out the fossil fuel consumption for transporting people, transporting goods, transporting energy, transporting stuffage. All right. We live very local. We try to be as self-contained as possible in a community. And for lack of a better term, I'm calling it a village. It's not a medieval village. It's not the Egyptian village. It's not an Assyrian village. It's, it's a modern reinvention of village life. So how to build a village? Let's take these 5 bullet points that we're asked to focus on, and let's just examine these in the light of not a net zero goal, aspirational goal, but an actual zero emissions requirement, because that is our future. First is home energy. So home energy is important. We're all modern. Here I am on the YouTubes. I got my light, I got my camera, I got my microphone, I've got my freshly made vegetable juice and a electric juicer, and the celery for the juice came from Whole Foods, which got it from, I don't know, Ecuador, right? So here we are, awash in energy. Everything I'm doing here, everything I can see, including the wood floor, all of it, sheetrock, all of it, everything, dependent on fossil fuels. How do we have home energy and maintain any of this? So back in the day, questions about home energy meant, how could you conserve energy, right? Energy awareness, be sure to turn the lights off when you leave the room, put in those funny looking twisty bulbs, that Al Gore talked about back in the 80s, to reduce your energy consumption. Flow restrictors on your shower head to consume less hot water, and also in the sink, the kitchen sink, so you consume less hot water. more insulation, right? You put more insulation in your house. They're always telling you to put more insulation in your ceiling because that's where the heat goes out the ceiling. Also, in the summer, the roof gets hot and the attic gets hot. So, if you want to stay comfortable in your house in the summer, you put more insulation in the attic. Makes a lot of sense. Nothing wrong with that. Go ahead and do that. All right, but that doesn't that didn't solve your home energy requirement. That just reduces to a small degree, just a fraction, right? 10% savings, 10% reduction, maybe just a small reduction in your energy consumption. But what if we were to get serious about home energy? What if everybody was responsible for their home energy? You want home energy? That's great. I can see where you would. You have to make it. You have to create your own home energy. You have to do that, right? It's not going to come in necessarily from the street, from the transformer pole, and it comes down to your load center and into your house, and you got all these breakers and things you have to manage. That all goes away. Home energy in the home. So it sounds very mysterious, doesn't it? But it's not, of course. We're already doing residential solar. It's easy to do. Of course, you don't have sunlight at night. And so that means you need batteries so that you can store up some energy for use in the nighttime or on cloudy days, things like that. So yeah, we can do residential energy. It has to be electric. Has to be electric. That means your water heating has to be electric. Your cooktop has to be electric. Your heating and cooling has to be electric. And now you're thinking, oh, the electric bill went bankrupt me. Oh, well, no, you're on solar. Oh, you mean it's free? Yeah, that's right. Practically so. So, what can cities and counties do to help people with their home energy? Ironically, not enough. It's not really energy efficiency, although once you're generating your own power and you're having to manage it, you become really conscious of how it's being used. Do you have enough capacity? Do you have enough storage? What if it's cloudy for 3 or 4 days and you've only got storage for 2? So these become real questions. uh, the cities, the states, local government can help us with this. They can help us with this. I can tell you right now a couple things they can do. They can help encourage the installation of residential solar power, and you can have home energy. And I don't mean grid attached where you generate more power than you need and give it basically to PG&E and then you buy it back retail later. They also have to do batteries, and it takes a lot of batteries. The batteries are not that expensive, to be honest with you. Um, you could probably get by with $8,000 worth of solar installation, and then add another, yeah, maybe 8 or 9 thousand dollars for the batteries. And you're thinking, hyperventilating. Look, man, if we're serious about getting off of fossil fuels, and if 85% of the energy here in the state of California comes from fossil fuels or imports from other states, then you got a problem. All right, you got a problem, my dude, my dudette. You're not going to have power. You're not. You like power? Do you like electricity? Do you like it? I like it. I like it a lot. I like having it. I like using it. I'm heating my home. I'm cooking my food. I'm heating my water. I love it. Okay. So how are you going to have that in an age where you don't have fossil fuels? Now you could say, okay, well, how about if the state puts up, solar farms and things? Yeah, they need to do that too. But the questionnaire is, what about home energy? What can we do for ourselves? And that's something we can do for ourselves. And you need to do that. You need to do that. You are going to have to do that. And they can help us. They can help us. They can maybe even make it free. Honestly, they want us to be okay. They want us to be okay. And they got an international airport and they got all these flights coming in and out. That's all going to end. So what could they do with that money? Right? What could they do with that money? They got all this mass transit. They got all these trains and things running up and down the tracks on diesel, and that's not going to happen either. So what can they do with that money? Well, maybe they can buy solar panels. Maybe they can put solar panels on our homes. Maybe they can start projects to have community solar. So everywhere that there's a parking lot, how long that's going to last, I don't really know. But say there's a parking lot, they could put solar panels on, uh, you know, arbors over the parking spaces, and then take that energy and distribute it out to the homes. So there's things that the cities and the counties can do to help us manage our home energy. But I'm not talking here about conserving. I'm talking here about making your home energy, just making it, and that then gets us local. We are now creating a local capability. We have it. It's ours. We manage it. We share it. We build it. We determine the scope of that work. And we do that for our communities, for ourselves, for our families, and our neighbors. We do that. Why here we do that? We don't have the utility companies somewhere maybe doing some mythical project that they don't even care about because they can't make money on it. And we don't wait for them to do that. We do it right here. Home energy. We can do that. Moving on. Transportation. So in the past, that has equated to better mass transit, more comfortable, more routes, closer to homes, closer to the schools and workplaces of people where people have to go on a daily basis. So they can start to plan around their trips around the bus systems and all that. Um, Regional transit, of course. So you have to have cities connecting to each other, and bus lines are not real comfortable. So that means some sort of train system, light rail. Here in the Bay Area, we have BART and Caltrain. Caltrain is diesel, BART's electric. So things like that. And in San Jose, where we live, they have light rail, which is electric trolleys. They run on rails, and they're electric, and they're really quiet, and they're very comfortable, very clean, and they run them all the time because they're really small. And so, that is one solution to your transportation problem. Let me propose another one for you. You got to think about this. I'm going to say it, but then you're going to have to think about it. What if you didn't have to go anywhere? But I do. But what if you didn't? What kind of life is that? It's called hyperlocal life. It's village life. People who lived in a village didn't have anywhere to go. They just didn't have anywhere to go. And they were happy not going anywhere. They were happy staying home. They were happy that they didn't have to get up in the morning and fight in the traffic and the road rage and shooting their guns on the freeway. And that was great. They didn't have to do any of those things. If they had to go into town, it was maybe once every 2 weeks or once a month, and they had to saddle the horse. Okay. Now we can do much better than that. Already we can do better than that. We can do so much better than that. All right. We have all these paved roads and concrete sidewalks, and everybody has a bicycle, and now they're electric bicycles, and you charge them up in your garage in 2 hours. Just it costs 2 cents to charge up a bicycle, and there's bike paths everywhere, and if you happen to live in a community where everything is nearby, called walkable communities, and they're not walkable because they have sidewalks. They're walkable because you can walk to places that matter. Okay. So if you live in walkable communities, or your city helps you create a walkable community, okay, then you don't even need a bicycle necessarily. Although if you want to ride your bike, you could do that too. So transportation, it doesn't necessarily mean we must have huge multi-billion-dollar electric high-speed rail projects all up and down the state, and huge multi-billion-dollar infrastructure projects to deliver all the electricity to all the things that are doing all the miles and the billions of miles per hour. And yeah, that's one way to think of it. Another way to think of it is don't need to go. Don't need to go. During the pandemic, people kind of got used to working from home. Companies didn't like that because they were thinking, I don't know how long you're in the bathroom when you're home. I don't know that you're not on the phone talking to the teacher at the preschool or at the high school about your kid. I don't know that you're not, listening to light music when you're working in your own home, and maybe making a cup of tea and talking to the neighbor next door about a play date with the children. I don't know what you're doing. You could be more productive for me. You could do more shit for me, and I could be more profitable. But no, you're talking on the phone with your neighbor about your children. Okay. And so they made everybody come into the workplace so they can watch you like eagles. Are you, why? Why? You went to the bathroom twice in the last hour? You know, reprimand. Okay. What if we change that? What if we change that? What if we made sure that every company that has a knowledge workers, those knowledge workers work from home? Done. One and done. Just requirement. In fact, the company has to write an entire report explaining why every single person individually must be in the office. What is your role? Why do you have to be physically in the office? And if you put it to them, then they might say, well, actually, I guess they kind of don't have to. Really, they have to be in the office for productivity reasons or because I want to watch them. Okay, well, then they don't have to be there. Work out the productivity thing. Figure it out. They don't have to be there. Okay, transportation problem solved for a whole class of people. All right, the janitors, they have to go to the office because they have to clean the toilets. Oh, wait, there's nobody in the office. Oh, okay, well, what do you do with that janitor? Oh, I don't know. Again, do we really have to provide an entire fossil fuel energy infrastructure, including high-speed rail and electric cars and billions of dollars of high-speed rail and trillions of dollars of infrastructure for freeways and trillions of dollars of gasoline stations every quarter of a mile or every tenth of a mile on every corner, just like a Starbucks? Do we really have to do that just to get the guy to clean the toilets in an office where there's nobody in the office? We have to make choices here, people. We need to make choices. And if we're going to get ourselves off of fossil fuels, or to put it another way, if we're going to survive in an age where fossil fuels are in some ways restricted, possibly by price, possibly by availability, and nevertheless not available as they are now, then how are we going to survive? And if the offices can be empty and no one is on the freeway back and forth, and the gas stations are out of business because they haven't sold any gas for a while, then what are we going to do to this guy that used to clean the toilets at the office? Now that's a person, that's a human being, and the fact that they're trapped, and believe me, they're trapped. A lot of these people are driving 80 miles to go to that office to clean the toilets, okay? And they have to do it because that's how they're surviving. Then when we have these people, our responsibility when we're going net zero or really zero, our responsibility is to figure out how to take care of these people. That's our responsibility. We have to do that. It's not their fault that they don't have a role to play anymore because we all went net zero or really zero. We have to figure that out for them. And some of their lives are pretty sucky. Driving 80 miles from Tracy just to come down here to North San Jose just to clean the toilets. And no part of that scenario makes any sense. Zero part of that scenario. And yet that's how they feed their family. And yet that makes no sense of any kind. 0 cents. Exploitative and dangerous and dehumanizing. And it makes no actual sense. 0 is the number we're looking for here. Yes, you can solve how people transport themselves, or you can eliminate the necessity for people to transport themselves. And the difference is that solving the transportation problem and getting everybody on electric trains and electric cars and electric airplanes and electric helicopters and all this kind of stuff and reducing your fossil fuel consumption costs billions, if not trillions of dollars, if at scale. Whereas if you just don't travel because you figured that out, well, then you don't have to spend that money. You don't have to have that investment. People, if they are living where they are working and they're living where they're going to school and they're living where they need to be, then their transportation problem evaporates. Well, we can't do that. Maybe you can't. I could easily figure that out. I could easily figure it. Give me an hour. Sit down here. I'm the engineer. I understand our challenges. Sit down here. Give me an hour of your time, and I'll show you exactly. And we can even budget it. We can even figure it out with the engineering requirements and the scope of work and the budget right here in an hour. And if I can do that, there's a lot of people can do that. Nobody wants to hear it. They don't want to hear it. Food and waste, my favorite. So you think you're going to go net zero? You think you're going to create your food, handle your waste products, waste streams in a way that somehow balances with the fossil fuel consumption? Well, you're not doing that. You're not doing that. 100% of our food that we consume comes from an agricultural system that uses fossil fuels at every single step of every part of every aspect of the food production system. Fossil fuels to prepare the land, plant the seeds, and this is just plants. We'll get to animals later. Plow the land, prepare the land, plant the seeds, apply the fertilizers, apply the pesticides, which fertilizers and pesticides need to be applied using fossil fuels, but also are based on fossil fuels. Okay. Harvest, transport the harvested food, which is bulk corn, bulk wheat, bulk soybeans. Okay. Process the commodities so that your soybeans become tofu and your wheat becomes flour. Okay. Transport the finished goods, the tofu, the flour, the whatever else, okay, to a store which is built on and operated having refrigerators and lighting and cash registers and employees who drive to work on infrastructure based on fossil fuels, all of that, okay? At stores where people have to drive to get to most of the time, especially if they live in suburbs, there's no markets near their homes in suburbs, okay? And then they have to have freezers, refrigerators, all this other stuff at home to preserve this food. Every step. That was a lot of steps. I ran out of fingers. Did you notice that? A lot of steps just from farm to table. Farm to table. All of it. Every single step dependent on timely deliveries of fossil fuels and the manufacturing of heavy equipment using fossil fuels, working on fossil fuels, using fossil fuel infrastructure to make every ounce of food you eat. Now, if your aspiration is, oh, well, we're going to be net zero, then you have to figure out, city, county, state, whatever, you have to figure out how much food is coming into your city. You have to do this. I'm not letting you get away with this. You have to figure out how many tons of food is coming into your city. I haven't even mentioned the food, the animal protein yet, have I? Let's just talk about just the plants, okay? How many tons of food comes into your stores? Where it comes from? How much fossil fuel is used to get it to your stores? How many trucks come in using how much road infrastructure to do that? And how many parking lots and warehouses are required to manage all that using fossil fuels? Okay. And then as a city, state, county, you're going to have to offset that somehow to get to net zero. That all the embodied fossil fuels in the food that people are consuming and just the plants so far is going to have to be offset somehow. 100% of it. All your food is derived from fossil fuels. You are essentially eating fossil fuels. Essentially, you're eating coal and oil and natural gas. You're eating it because that's where that stuff comes from. Now, the animals, it's worse. It's 10 times worse. And yet the steps are almost exactly the same. I don't even have to enumerate them, except that there's an additional step of having these slaughterhouses that generate an enormous amount of animal waste. Okay, the feedlots and the farms generate animal waste as in feces from feeding them, but they're feeding them the same food that we eat, okay, the corn, the soybeans. So there's the embodied fossil fuels in the plant material that we feed the herbivores that we will eat as carnivores. And so they're getting the same food we're getting, all the embodied fossil fuels there. And then they have waste products that have to be managed. States that produce like pork and beef have entire lakes devoted to just storing animal wastes. There are pig farms that have ponds, lakes of pig shit. And sometimes the dams holding them back break and it all gets released into the river. And of course, nobody cares because that's where they would have liked to have released it anyway. But environmental controls say you can't do that. So they just wait for it to accumulate. The weir breaks. It all runs into the river anyway. And they're like, oh, crocodile tears. It all went into the river anyway. My bad. And they pay their $15,000 fee and they go on about their business. The amount of animal waste that we have to manage somehow or not manage, just throw it in the ocean. I guess that's okay too for some people. That's huge expense. And then the animals have to be handled with a type of processing plant that is just enormous and filthy. And there's all kinds of controls for food quality assurance so we don't get E. coli outbreaks. And all of this stuff is just amazing expense of energy, just over the top, just completely. You wouldn't even believe it. Okay, then you have to transport the meat. Okay, in freezer cars. All right, in freezer cars, freezer trucks and trailers. You have to store it in a freezer. You have to do all this stuff with it, and then the people who buy the meat have to have freezers at home. Maybe it's part of the refrigerator, but it doesn't matter. It's just extra energy because that part of the refrigerator is colder than the vegetable part. And all of this doesn't even get you fresh vegetables, which people like, fruits, greens, lettuce, whatever, zucchinis. And that's a whole nother thing. And that requires fresh vegetables, fruits and vegetables requires a lot more human labor than either of those other two. So now you have strawberry fields. Now you have all these migrant workers who have to drive from wherever they're living to wherever they have to pick strawberries, and they're out there in the fields picking strawberries, and that's backbreaking work. You don't see the privileged white teenagers out there doing that. You see the people from Mexico out there doing that. I don't know what our problem is with immigration. Who else is going to do that work? And so that's a whole nother bunch of people who have to be out there, cutting your Brussels sprouts and picking your strawberries and doing all this. And they're driving all over the country. They're even called migrant workers. They drive from one job to the other. 1 week, depends on what's happening seasonally. They have to go over here to pick strawberries. And they have to go over here to pick artichokes and, seasonal migrant labor. Car dependent. And if you're going to make your city net neutral for carbon, net zero, carbon neutral and net zero, I'm not sure what they're calling it, then you have to account for that. Now, I can guarantee you they're not. What they're going to say is that, in the category of foods and wastes, you should eat less meat. All right, fine. Okay. And you should manage your waste products, compost more, have less food waste. Most people's food waste goes into the garbage can, and then that means that there's all this weight out on the street once a week for the truck to pick up. And the more garbage there is in the can, the more trucks it takes to pack it all away. So you think your problems are solved. You're going to take your waste products, your potato peelings, or whatever else, the food that people didn't eat, you throw it in the garbage can. The truck comes and picks it up. Well, if you didn't have that can out there, just to go over the top with this, if you didn't have that can out there at all, there wouldn't be a truck to come pick up that can at all, right? So somewhere between what you have now and what you could have, meaning nothing, all right, somewhere in there, everybody could fall. Everybody could make an improvement. The goal, the actual factual goal of waste management is like everything else, and this is going to be a theme here, zero. That's the goal. Not reduction, not some mythical 5% or 10% or whatever. Okay. The actual goal of waste management is to have no waste, zero. Not a reduction, not a percentage. Okay. Zero. That's the goal. That is the actual goal. How do we do that? I don't know. You'd have to talk to people. Our consumer lifestyles and all the throwaway plastics and the plastic wrappings and the plastic containering of everything is just absolute raging insanity. It's just insane. Go to Trader Joe's and buy a potato, and it comes in a plastic clamshell with a barcode on it. What is that about? Maybe they don't sell those anymore, but I bought a potato at Trader Joe's once that came in a plastic clamshell. And they even said, this is a virtue. Here's a barcode. You can track every mile that this potato traveled and everyone who touched it and every place it ever was. I was like, what is this, Internet of Things for potatoes now? Yeah, it was, in fact, Internet of Things for potatoes. That's not a solution, folks. That's a symptom of a disease. Okay? That's a symptom of a disease. And the way we manage food and the way we manage waste is insane. It's just completely over the top insane. It's insane. For one thing, you should be able to go in your backyard and get some food. Maybe not everything you need to eat, but certainly something. And then you need to have a market nearby. Again, walkable, bikeable, walkable being preferred. You should have a market nearby that's always there, and there's always something. And maybe it changes seasonally, and maybe it changes every day. And maybe there isn't bread every day. Maybe there isn't watermelons every day. Maybe these things are seasonal, but you can always go there. And you can always get some fresh food, and you bring your little bag and you bring your little basket and you walk away with your food, and you just have a little bit in there, and you come home and you make a meal for yourself using your solar power from your roof. All right. How much energy is embodied in that food? Well, for the food in your backyard, the number, wait for it, the number for the embodied energy in your food from your backyard is 0. And that is the goal. It's 0. Okay. Not a reduction, not a net 0 or a net carbon neutral or whatever, not some ledger domain with the spreadsheets and all this accounting and all this wizardry and all this whatever ledger domain. 0. No energy embodied in that product. And when you go to the local market, the number should be as close to 0 as possible. And there are ways to attain that. What if your producers are not in Salinas, where they have to drive up here with a diesel truck? Although that's not too far. That's certainly closer than Ecuador or Brazil, right? It's not doing too bad. What if they were in your community and they could transport their produce to your little market where you can walk? 0 fossil fuel consumption. You can walk. And their truck was electric, and they charged their truck at the farm using solar panels. And the only embodiment of fossil fuels is the fact that the truck exists. It had to be manufactured. And the only embodiment of fossil fuels at the market is there's a wooden building that had to be built, and maybe there's some sort of floor. It could be a rammed earth floor. There's nothing finer than walking into a marketplace with a dirt floor and sheep and cows mooing and bleeding off in the fields, and children running around playing, and babies with their mothers, and dirt floor, and the stalls are right there, and you pick through the produce and you put it in your basket and you wait for it, walk home. Wow. We could do that. We could do that. Now, I can't do that. You can't do that. My wife can't do that. City can do that. County can do that. They can absolutely do that. And that marketplace could be on city land, managed by the city. Okay, the whole thing managed by them, coordinated by them. They could have a whole department of local agriculture where these little marketplaces are set up with dirt floors, solar panels on the roof. In every neighborhood, there could be 500 of them. But they're just barns. They're pole barns. They don't even have walls necessarily, and the stalls inside are just wood structures, and it's got a dirt floor, and there's a proper bathroom facility nearby, right? Like they have at the ballpark, at the children's park, right? Where you walk in, it's a cinder block building, and there's toilets and sinks and solar panels on the roof. Water heater right there, solar energy, heating the water, washing your hands, changing the baby's diaper, okay? Right there, walking distance from the pole barn where the food is being sold that was brought in on an electric truck from a farm that was 4 miles away, solar panels on the roof. Yeah, they could do that. They could do that. They could do that. They could set that shit up. They could absolutely do that. They got it'd be cheap. Oh, it'd be so cheap. And then people in the neighborhood who are more committed to their gardening, and maybe they got a bunch of tomatoes, they got a bunch of zucchinis, they got a bunch of okra, they got a bunch of tomatoes. They can go down, grab a stall, or sell them to the local vendor. Hey, Juan, great to see you here today. I see you got tomatoes. I see you got okra. You know what? I'm bringing in some okra. You put this here. I know people love to cook with okra. So can I exchange my okra for a couple of your zucchinis or a couple of your tomatoes? These look great. And I got too much okra. I don't have any tomatoes. Can I just exchange? And then he sells the okras because he's selling them anyway. Now he's got more. And what was the carbon embodied footprint of your okra going 2 blocks to the farmer's market and you coming back on your own feet with food to make your next meal? And the embodied carbon on that is, wait for it, 0 bagels, nothing. Okay. The big O. Food, waste management. We could do this, people. We could do this. No, I can't do this. You can't do this. Red Cross can't do this. The cities and the counties can do this. They can do this. Please do this. Make this happen. Thank you. Water. Water is a big deal in California. It's insane. The biggest problem with water is the same problem with everything else. It's in the wrong place. We make water. Well, we don't make. You know, nature makes. We collect water in one part of the state, and it's used in another part of the state. Now, here's where I'm going to say something contentious. If you can't collect water where you live, then maybe you live in the wrong place. Just putting that out there. If you live in a place where your water has to be imported thousands of miles in pipelines that cost trillions of dollars to install and maintain, and you're taking water from other communities and bringing it down to fill your swimming pool, maybe you live in the wrong place. Just saying. Water availability should be determined locally. Do you have it? Good for you. Do you not have it? Oh, well, that's possibly a problem now because we don't have fossil fuels, or we're not going to do fossil fuels. And the fossil fuels have gotten too expensive to use them on projects like that. So suck it up, Buttercup. Now, we can collect rainwater. You can even collect, believe it or not, fog. For real, you can collect fog. What cities and counties can do is help people understand the importance of do your own water, okay, or don't have it, or move somewhere else. We can help you with all these things. They can help. They can actually install infrastructure either at people's homes or in neighborhoods, or maybe for the entire city, to collect as much rainwater as possible. This is not easily done on a huge area. Okay, it can be done locally per home. Every home should collect rainwater. It's simple as that. Why? Tell me once again why we are letting this water run off our roofs into the gutter, down the storm drain, washing the raccoons out to the river, and all that goes to the sea. Oh, well, the reason we have to do that is because the river is itself habitat. Good point. That's a valid point. And the riparian vegetation on either side of the river is important to wildlife and to helping to cool our cities. And if it does get hot and you want to cool down, you can go down to the park that's on either side of the creek or the river, and you can just enjoy the shade. You can enjoy the sound of the water and the coolness of the trees, and you can endure a hot day that way. So there's lots of good reasons to have water and rivers and streams and riparian vegetation and that kind of mixed habitat, and the animals that come with it are a bonus. And we'd love to have our animals, right? That's good. And yet, we still need to collect rainwater on our properties. You can do that with rain barrels, and then you can use a small portable electric pump that you can put a garden hose on, and you can then spray that water on your backyard. You can do gray water reclamation, and they generally say, "Oh, that's your clothes washer," and well, I guess that's about it. That's your clothes washer. And you can put that on your yard. You can put that on your garden. And there's all these cautions about, oh my God, it might be contaminated and all this kind of stuff. Okay, fine. All right. Gray water, got to be careful. But I'm pretty sure that we could do better than just, run your gray water on the ground in the back. Someone could research this. Someone could come up with an actual system for managing gray water. And you might want to even manage more gray water than just your laundry, although that's probably a good part of it. And if you could find a way to inject your gray water into your ground, in a way that it doesn't really get on your plants, or it's not out there where you're going to get into it. It's just saturating the earth with water, and like a septic system, except there's no bodily waste. If you could just get a septic system of some kind and collect all your gray water, so your shower, your sinks, okay, we could build houses to do this. We could have it in the code. We could have it as a recommendation. We could have it as a requirement that you have to build houses to collect all the waste, all the gray water, okay, not the brown water. That's got the poop in it, right? So the poop goes out to the sewer, all right, and the gray water goes into your backyard. And it can just go into the ground. It doesn't have to go into the beds or go into, the cattle trough or anything like that. It just goes into the ground. It goes into the ground, and it ends up being part of the aquifer, and it's all groovy. Okay. Individual homeowners can figure that out, but couldn't the city and the county figure that out for us? Couldn't the local government say, hey, here's some projects, here's some programs. We'll send out teams to install this for you. We'll modify your plumbing. And even better, when building new construction, you have to build it to facilitate gray water collection. Okay, so the plumbing for the toilets goes one place, and the plumbing for the gray water, the sinks and whatnot, goes in another place. And the place is a filtration system in the ground. Okay, and it just all goes into the ground, and it's available for the plants. When you saturate the ground, the water, it goes all directions. It's just like when you saturate a towel, a towel laying on the ground, it'll be saturated from the bottom all the way to the top. The water wicks up. And so if you are injecting hundreds of gallons of water a week, thousands of gallons of water a week into your backyard under the ground where you don't even see it, okay, it will be there. And some of it will go into the aquifer, and some of it will be available for your plants. And plants will love it, right? They don't have any problem with it at all. You don't want to drink it, but they don't have any problem with it at all. So collecting rainwater on site, maybe community-wide, but certainly diverting your gray water. And if filtration technology gets good enough, there's this thing called, and it sounds horrific. It's probably meant to sound horrific, but you just have to understand this. It's called toilet to tap. So it's like the worst possible scenario, right? This is nightmare. This is Stephen King, toilet to tap. Okay. All they're saying is that it's always been toilet to tap, people. Are you kidding me? It's been toilet to tap for hundreds of years, but it goes through nature first. We flush our toilet, it goes out to the sewer, that goes to the water treatment plant, it gets treated, the solids get separated out, and then the water that's left over gets dumped in the sea. Okay. And then the sea provides, well, now it's seawater, and that's where the evaporation happens, and it comes over in a cloud, and it drops on a mountainside, and it fills a reservoir, and that ends up in your house. So it's always been toilet to tap via the sea. Okay. But what the sea is doing is it's diluting and filtering all the wastes in the water that aren't solid waste. So it's toilet to tap via the sea and rainfall. So is there any way that the cities and the counties could help streamline that so that we can use that water, maybe not for drinking water, maybe not the tap as such, but we can continue to use it for things. And of course, we actually do that. There's recycled water. We call it the purple water because it comes in special pipes that are labeled with purple tape to alert you that it's not potable water. You can use those on gardens. We have a community garden right down the street here that has the purple water. They get the purple water and they use it to water the beds. That's all it's used for. It's not used in the bathroom. It's not used at the drinking fountain. It's not used for anything else. It's just used to water the beds. And there are signs at the beds that say this tap contains recycled water. Do not drink. Fair enough. And they use it to water the gardens. Now, what if we had the purple water deliveries to every home? Every home got the purple water. Oh, and they got it for free. That's kind of toilet to tap because now you can run your irrigation and it's purple water. So you have to have little signs on the taps that say, do not drink. You have to tell your children this is not for drinking. Maybe there are special taps. They're like child-proof taps, right? That you have to have a special tool to turn that water on and off so that the kids don't get into it. Fine. Okay. It's just engineering, folks. That's all it is. It's engineering and education. Then you have free water to your home distributed from the waste treatment plant, which has to get rid of it anyway, right? So the city could figure that out for us. They could deliver it to our neighborhood. We could tap into it for our home. Now we have two water supplies. One of them is potable and one of them is not. The potable water goes into your house plumbing and the non-potable water goes into your backyard or your front yard or some combination of the two and is used for irrigation, purple water, okay? They could do that. Oh, that's money. Yeah, but they could do it. They could spend the money. Do they care about us? Do they want us to have water for our gardens and our local agriculture, or do they not? Because if they want us to be able to be successful and have local gardening and local farms and local markets and where the embodied carbon footprint is not net zero, but zero, the actual number, okay? The embodied carbon footprint of my produce raised with my purple water is zero, no carbon, all right? If that's what they want, that's how you do it. So you can collect rainwater for use in your gardening. You can do the purple water thing. Okay. You can collect gray water and just inject it into your soil, or given advancements in filtration. And again, it's an engineering problem, people. You could maybe even turn your rainwater into potable water. You could store in a cistern and pump it out later, maybe only on an emergency basis. The city runs low on water. There's a drought. There's a whatever. Then you may want to take some of your collected rainwater and run it through an engineered filtration system that makes it potable water, and you can just drink it. Not a problem. There are some whole house water filtration systems. They're expensive. They cost about $2,500 that can turn just about anything into potable water. They're not as good as reverse osmosis, although that's also available. But you can have a filtration system on your house that you'd have to monitor. You'd have to test your water. Maybe there's even a continuous test that takes place. Again, it's just engineering, people. It's just innovation. You like that word, innovation? Well, let's get on with it, shall we? And you can take your collected rainwater and turn it into potable water. Oh, and I guess while we're on the subject of that, I wonder if you could do that with the purple water. Is there a filtration system and a sterilization system, or reverse osmosis, where you could take the purple water and turn it into certified, clean, guaranteed, potable tap water? Oh, that would cost a lot of money. It's just money. It's just innovation. Why can't we figure this shit out? Surely we can figure. Here we are, the heart of Silicon Valley. Here we are. How about we innovate this? Shall we? Shall we innovate this? Let's give it a try, shall we? These are things that the cities and the counties can help us with. They can help us with that. And then we don't have to worry about net zero. What is the carbon content of my food coming from Salinas Valley or maybe from Ecuador? And what's the carbon content of my water that's being delivered from Hetch Hetchy Reservoir or maybe someplace else? Maybe it's being delivered on a truck. I don't even know anymore. I buy bottled water. What's the carbon embodiment of bottled water that's being shipped from Texas? And all this confusion. And how do I balance this out to get net zero? And it's, net zero, and there's math, and there's carry the one and divide by three, and it's spreadsheets, and it's all these accountants who wear thick glasses, and I don't even trust these people, and they're going to get me to net zero somehow, and maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. What if it doesn't work? Okay, remember why we're doing all this. Why are we doing all this, people? Because we're trying to save ourselves from global heating, which we're not doing. Oh, by the way, complete failure. All right, big L, losers. And so that's the goal. So if we're serious about the goal, then maybe the goal isn't net zero carbon embodiment for all of these things where I'm balancing and carrying the two and all this kind of stuff. No, how about zero? The actual number is zero. There are no carbon emissions associated with the thing in question, the transportation or the home energy or the food and the waste or the water. The actual number is, well, let's see, I don't have to carry the two or do a division or anything, because actually the amount of fossil fuels consumed was essentially zero. Not net anything. We're not netting. We're not netting. We're not netting here. We're not doing math. We're not doing accounting and all this wizardry and lying to ourselves. We're actually zero. We've arrived. Wow. And all we had to do was innovate and make some decisions and change some things and maybe, get people out of their cars. Really, that's all we had to do. Really, get people out of their cars, which they hate, by the way. Road rage is a thing, people. All we had to do was really get them out of their cars, walking in their communities. We had to bring the food and the water closer, and the schools and the healthcare closer, and people had to be able to walk, and the sidewalks had to be good, and we needed to provide street trees so people could walk and not get hot in the summer, and that's all we really had to do. Really, that's it. And we got to zero. Fifth point: community action. All right. Well, here I am, the real deal, folks. The real deal. No twisty bulbs involved. No net nothing. No aspirational goals. Zero. An actual number. No fossil fuel consumption. Zero. Permit me to recap. Zero home energy issues. You make your own energy. You store it locally. Yes, it costs money, but that's why we have taxes. That's why we have huge programs. How much money do they spend building dams and hydro projects and transmission wires all across the state and bringing in energy from Ecuador? Okay. Make your own. Store it locally. Use it efficiently. Okay. And the cities and the states can help us with this. This could be a zero cost program for most people. Transportation. Why? Remind me again why we're transporting people. Oh, that's right. They're not living in the right places. And we put people in people ghettos over here, and we put businesses in business ghettos over here, and then we just connect them with cars. Okay? Why? We don't have to do that. We just don't have to do that. During COVID, we learned, lots of people don't have to do that at all. They just don't have to do that. And of course, the companies get jealous of what their people are doing with their time. Well, fuck you. Be jealous. We're trying to save the planet here. Oh, and by the way, we're trying to save ourselves. Thank you very much. And the answer, how we save ourselves, is zero. Zero transportation. Nobody's going anywhere. Figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, then the state, the county, and the city, and the federal government, and the United Nations has a moral, ethical responsibility to figure that out for you. Get you a situation. We're going to need a lot of people doing a lot of things that are not being done right now at all. Or maybe you're not cleaning toilets at some business park 80 miles from where you live. Already, that sounds better, doesn't it? Doesn't that sound better? So what are you doing? Oh, well, I'm starving to death under a bridge. No, you're not. No, we're not going to allow that. No, you're not going to drive 80 miles to an office and clean the toilets. Okay, well, we got something else you can do. Okay, we've got local farms, we've got the local agriculture, we have a lot of construction projects. You understand you're not an office worker, so you can't work from home, whatever that really means. Okay, there's going to be a lot less of that without fossil fuels. Working for whom again? There's going to be a lot of people with time on their hands. If we solve the transportation problem because we don't have fossil fuels anyway, we may not have businesses to go to. A lot of people are going to want something to do. And what they're going to be mostly interested in is food, clothing, and shelter. All right. Can the cities help us with that? Can the states help us with that? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe they should. Just a thought. Food and waste. We should not be generating any waste. Compost your food. Compost it on your property. Put it in your garden. Oh, you don't have a garden, so it doesn't make any sense for you. You're going to have a garden. And if you don't have a garden, then we're going to have a can out front of your house that's just for compost, just for yard waste and food waste. Oh, but that means there's a truck coming down to pick it up. Well, maybe we would allow for that. Maybe it's an electric truck. Or maybe the requirement is that there is a compost collection facility in your neighborhood. And your requirement, or working with your neighbors, is to get your compost down there and dump it yourself. And the embodied carbon footprint of you collecting your own wastes and hauling them down there and dumping them is 0. Okay? And maybe we have to do that. Oh, and watch what happens. If people start hauling their own food waste to a collection facility of some kind, like they would haul their recycled cans and bottles, if they haul their food waste to a recycling facility where it can be collected and composted, they might generate a little less of it. That's a thought. That's a possibility. Or they might start composting their food waste on their property. That's a possibility. That's called a market incentive, okay? We put a market signal on that shit, and all of a sudden, it doesn't need to leave your property because you're not generating it. You figured that out. You figured out that for a little extra work, I'll just compost it on my property, and it goes into my garden, which I also should have. Problem solved. Food waste goes away. And the rest of the waste, like your flushing your toilet or whatever, maybe we'll send it down to the water treatment plant, and maybe they'll send it back to us as purple water for our garden. You see how this works? See how this is happening? And if I could find a way to treat my gray water on my property, oh, I can do that. I can just inject it into the ground in a big tank. Problem solved. See where all this is headed? See where this is headed? This is real simple, people. This is so simple. These are engineered solutions. Engineered solutions. Engineering, innovation. Engineered solutions. I'm not asking you to change your lifestyle. Flush the toilet. Go ahead. Engineered solutions. Community action. Now, community action. That's a muscle we don't have. Cats are really good at climbing trees. Did you know that? I taught human anatomy, and we had to part of the training, you have to dissect an animal. And one of the animals that we had for the students, and they shared the animals. It was all done very humanely. Of course, we just bought the animals, right? We didn't do anything with the animals. Was a cat dissection. And cats have special muscles that humans don't have. And they have them on their chests, and they're associated with climbing. I called them the climbing muscles. They have their own names. It doesn't matter. They're the climbing muscles. And cats do that. They do this, and they have special muscles for climbing with their claws. All right? There's a muscle we don't have besides that one. Besides the climbing muscle, there's another muscle we don't have that we don't exercise. And we're going to have to exercise that muscle and acquire that capability. And that is how to live in a community. We don't live in communities. Oh, yes, I love my neighbor. No, you don't. You don't love your neighbors. You barely know them. You never share a meal with them. And you didn't know that they had that teenager with an AR-15 either. Okay. You don't know your neighbors. You don't know your community. You don't know the kids. You don't know the elders. You don't know when they're dead. You don't know where they're alive. And you only find out about your neighbors when they're on the front page of the newspaper. That's what's really going on. We have no community involvement. That changes. And anybody who's been around in California has seen examples where that's changed. Fires, floods, earthquakes, people pull together. So we have the capability. We just don't have the ability. All right. We are capable of community action. We just don't really do it. And as a consequence, that muscle has atrophied. Like a cat that never climbs a tree. Doesn't have that muscle anymore. And we, social apes, we don't live that way anymore. And in many cases, now I'm sure you can find places in the world where this isn't true. I'm not talking about my dysfunctional neighborhoods, okay? Kids with AR-15 shooting up schools, those people, all right? We don't have that muscle. Community action can mean different things to different people. For some people, it's protesting with a placard and getting shot with rubber bullets. That's one type of community action. Another type of community action is going to your city council meeting and you know letting them know your thoughts on things. And another type of community action is running for the city council. Hey, there you go. There's a thought. You can try that. But there's a yet another type of community action, which is to live like a community. You don't talk about it. You don't protest it. You don't dream about it. You don't vote for it. You just do it. Here we are. Here we are. We're a community. I know my neighbors. I eat meals with my neighbors every night. A different house serves a different part of the community every night. We take turns. We also harvest and collectivize our food. We have a community silo, and we buy huge amounts of corn and wheat on the open market, and we buy it cheap because it's large volumes, right? It's delivered in a truck, and it's hauled out with bucket loaders right into our silo, which we have right here. And it's an engineered silo. Water and rodents and insects never get into it. It's completely engineered, completely hermetically sealed. We know exactly how to manage this. And we have one family that manages the wheat silo and another family that manages the corn silo. And anybody that needs these things, they come in and they take their daily ration or their weekly ration or whatever, because we do have to kind of control it a little bit, right? And no, you don't sell it on eBay, okay? So we have to keep track of who's taking what, and just for fairness. And so, but the community buys these things, and could be that the state and the county provides the service. Again, it's engineering. Here is how you store things, and here's how we're going to deliver them to you. And you need to get on a schedule, and we have a buying schedule, and we have a delivery schedule, and we plan on how much we have to have based on how many communities we have, and then it gets delivered into your silo. And here's how we recommend that you grind it and distribute it, and here's the kind of food you can make with it. Here's the recipes. And the city and the state could come up with programs to help us provide for ourselves the staples that we need to survive. And then if you want, if you've got wheat and and corn, and you can make tortillas, and you can make flour tortillas, and you have beans, which also may be part of the buying program, delivered into a silo. And then all you have to do is grow your own spices and tomatoes, and you can make sauces, and you can have salsa, and you can make yourself any kind of Mediterranean or Mexican food you want. Corn, beans, wheat, tomatoes, peppers, all that stuff could be delivered to your community or grown fresh. And if you want rice, that could be delivered. It's just innovation, people. It's just a different way to think. And what is the embodied carbon of corn that you get from your silo down the block from that family that's managing the corn silo for us all? The embodied carbon is whatever energy it takes for you to walk down there with a little bag under your arm, and that's zero. Okay, fairness. That corn had to be delivered on a truck. But what if the truck is an electric vehicle? And what if there's a centralized silo right here downtown where corn and wheat and beans and lentils and a bunch of other things are stored, dry goods. And so it's centralized, and there's one electric vehicle that just goes around to all the neighborhoods and fills the silos. And what's the embodied carbon for that vehicle driving down the road full of corn? Zero, except for the manufacturing of the corn, of the vehicle. And that's a 40-year project to amortize that. And what about the corn itself? Well, if the corn itself came from one of our fields right here in our community, right here in our zip code, then the fossil fuel embodiment of the corn is also zero. Now, this only works if you have a sense of community. Now, we don't have that. We don't have that. We're missing it. We haven't used that muscle in a long time. 300 years or so, most of us. Oh, not individuals, of course, no one's 300 years old, but our communities have lost that muscle. We don't have that mindset, that cultural affinity anymore. Our communities have been completely overwhelmed by market forces and capitalism and retail and everything else. And we don't have that capability anymore. Well, it's there. It's just vestigial. It's just slumbering. It's estivating. It's hibernating. So we need to reawaken that potential to work collectively and to work together. Okay. And we can have a community notion of things. Now, this is not the same level of commitment as waving a sign in front of City Hall. And it's also a different kind of commitment than even running for City Hall. An individual packing a sign and saying, whatever, green energy is best. That's one person making decisions for themselves. Someone deciding to run for City Hall is one person making decisions for themselves. That is not community. You think that's activism. It's not. It's one person making decisions for themselves. And communities making decisions for everybody in everyone's interests is not something we do. We just don't. Voting doesn't count. Voting is not it. If we're going to get ourselves off of carbon fossil fuels, and I don't mean net zero balancing and carry the two and divide by three and how many pi to how many digits. Okay, and I have to have an accountant for this part, and I have to have a lawyer for this other part. And what are my regulatory frameworks? Not net zero. Zero. Got it? That's the goal here. A big zero. No fossil fuels involved as far as possible. If that's our goal, then we can't do that individually by screwing in an LED bulb or buying an electric car. Not that that's even close to a solution, or running for city council or carrying a sign or protesting the fossil fuel companies. Okay. We're going to have to do this collectively. We're going to have to say, all right, we all have the same needs. We all have to solve the same problem. The problem is fossil fuels are going away. They need to go away. They must go away. Therefore, they shall go away. We can't individually survive without fossil fuels. We can't feed ourselves. We can't clothe ourselves. We can't house ourselves. There'll be no water. There'll be no electricity. What are we going to do? Oh, no. Worry. But collectively, we can start to solve these problems. And working with cities and counties and state governments, they can help us think about this. They can commission engineering firms to figure some of these problems out for us, like how to manage rainwater and how to manage gray water and purple water. Okay. They can help us create walkable communities, including and primarily access to walkable markets, even open air markets, or maybe a pole barn market that runs, it's a 4-season market. And also to help us with our electricity requirements, because mostly we need to be able to cook our food, heat our water, and condition. That means heating and cooling. Okay, air condition our homes, and provide for lighting, and countertop appliances. And then we can grind the corn. We can grind the wheat. I have a perfectly functional wheat grinder right here that makes great cornmeal. We can do these things. We can do them. But no individual can figure this out. I can figure it out. I just did. I don't know how much time I spent doing this. Hour and 13 minutes. I've been doing this. Engineer. Got my engineering hat on, more or less. Okay. And here I am engineering this shit. Engineering the shit out of this. That's what I'm doing. Engineering my tail feathers right off. Right here. Sitting right here doing this. Hour and 13 minutes. Okay. Engineers can do that. Who else is an engineer? Who else has been thinking about this for half their adult life? Who else has been implementing this for half of their adult life? Well, okay, besides me. Oh, my wife. There you go. There's two of us. But the cities can help. The cities can find these people. The cities and the counties can find these solutions. They can put them out there. They can say, we will pay for this. We will make this possible. We will make this necessary. We will make this easy. And we will buy the land, and we'll tear out the asphalt, and we'll put up the pole barn, and we'll tear out the business parks, especially when they go bankrupt, right? We'll tear out the business parks. We'll, tear up the asphalt and make that land available for people. And, we'll have paths all through the community to get to the land. We'll have paths all through the community to get to to the local markets, and we'll have 200 local markets, and we'll have all these silos and all this storage facility, and we'll buy bulk grains and other dry goods, lentils and beans, and store these things in the central facility, and we'll distribute them out to the communities. And you people will have everything you need. You'll have solar power on your roof. You'll have walkable communities. Everything will be delivered on an electric truck, which you don't even have to worry about. It just comes to your community. All you have to do is figure out who in your community is going to have the local silo and how you're going to manage your food, how you're going to distribute it. And by the way, we encourage you to have meals together. There you go. And that latter one is strategic. We want you to be a community. We want you to exercise that muscle. We want you to think together, plan together, solve problems together. There's going to be problems. We're going to lose fossil fuels. It's going to suck. Because the goal here is not net zero, flu, unicorn farts. The actual goal here is zero. Zero fossil fuel consumptions. Zero, my dudes. Zero, my dudettes. That is the goal. There is no other goal. And how are we going to do that as individual monkeys alone in the jungle? Well, you're not. You're just not. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to work together. Sorry. Oh, isn't that terrible? Oh, Lord, not that. Working together. Oh. Is there any other way? No, that's it. We have to work together. Our wives and children are going to have to like work in the gardens together. Together? Are you kidding me? Together. Did I hear that correctly? We're going to have to work together. We're going to raise our children together. Raising our children together. Oh. I suppose it gets worse. Now you're going to want me to go down to some open air market with a dirt floor and like stand around with people, touching all the fruits that aren't wrapped hermetically sealed in plastic, like together, like at the market together. I guess that's going to be the next thing. Oh, that's the thing. That's really what we're going to have to do. Let's go to the market. Can I have my SUV with the tinted windows? No, I can't. I have to walk on my feet. I have to push my kid in a stroller. I don't even have a stroller. I don't think I can even know how to unfold a stroller. I can't do this. It's impossible for me to do. I can't think about it. My brain, I'm having an aneurysm just thinking about doing things together with people. I'm going to have an aneurysm. I'm going to have a stroke. Yeah, that's community activism, my friend. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about waving a sign and then going getting a latte at Starbucks. And we're not talking about running for government so you can stand up there and say, that's not politically feasible. We don't have budget for that. I don't know which department that would be. Would that be the Department of Transportation, or would that be the Department of get the fuck out of my way? I don't really know. Yeah, that's not activism, okay? Community activism is being active in your community, having a community, forming a community. If you have to, because you must, okay? You must do this. We are going to live without fossil fuels, not balance the carbon emissions with the carbon subtractions, with the additions and the square roots to get to net zero. Some accounting wizardry. No, the actual number is zero. No fossil fuel consumption, and therefore no emissions. And you're going to have to do that as a community. Call it community activism, call it activating your community, call it community formation, call it village life. I don't really care. You're just going to have to do it that way. You're going to have to pull together. You're going to have to pretend that every day was a disaster. It was a hurricane. It was a tornado. It was a fire. It was a flood. And now we're pulling together. And now I'm helping my neighbors. And now they're helping me. And now we're raising our children together. And now, we're really glad to have food really nearby. And now I'm glad someone had food stored up in a bucket because now we have something to eat. And now I'm glad someone had solar powers because now we have electricity in our community, whereas otherwise we wouldn't. And now we're a village. How'd that happen? Well, it happens every day. It happens every day. Every day you're a village. Every day you're solving the same problems. And they're not bad problems. Women like being together. Children like being together. There's a thing in us that is ready for this. Why aren't we doing this? Well, we're not doing this because we allowed the Chamber of Commerce to tell us what to do. So all of this, and anything related to it, anything I've been saying here for an hour and 20 minutes is impossible because the Chamber of Commerce won't allow it, right? You're going to have a farmer's market in your community, and you're going to have food brought in, and you're going to store food on your property. Really? Do you have a permit for that? Do you have 18,000 different types of permits for that? You have to be inspected like twice a day if you're storing food on your property, and you can't do that. You can't store food. You can't share food. That sounds like communism. Wait, are you socialist? Are you Marxist? Do you hate freedom? Do you hate democracy? Do you hate profits and money and freedom? See what happens? So ultimately, what the cities and the counties and the states and the local governments have to do is, how do I say this? I guess I won't say this. I mean, I could offer a solution on what to do with the Chamber of Commerce. I could do that. Let's just say they're going to be a problem. Let's just say the restaurateurs are going to be a problem. Let's just say the Trader Joe's and the Whole Foods are going to be a problem. They don't have to be. No reason for that. They're going to be. But they're also going to disappear. They're going to disappear. Because in an era when we don't have fossil fuels for every single thing we do, then we're also not going to have fossil fuels in the 18-wheelers that used to back up to Whole Foods and disgorge their contents of their 80-foot long trailers into their local shelves. That's not going to happen. We're not going to get any pushback from Whole Foods or Trader Joe's or the Mi Mercado or anything else, because they're not going to exist. They're not going to fail to exist because I said so. They're going to fail to exist because they don't have all the inputs they need. They're not getting food from Ecuador. They're not getting food from Salinas. And they don't have fossil fuels, and they don't have solar panels, and they couldn't figure it out. They're dinosaurs. They couldn't figure it out. In an era when they can't figure that out, we need to be moving on, right? That's our responsibility, is to move on with our home energy solutions and our transportation solutions, or none, and our localized hyper local food solutions and waste management solutions, and our hyper local or barely distributed at all water solutions, and engineering solutions to how to make rainwater and purple water potable again, okay, with frequent and maybe even automatic testing, right? It's engineering, people. It's engineering. It's not a miracle. It's desire. Make it happen. Make it so. And we have to exercise that muscle, that community muscle. It was really easy to just jump in your SUV with the tinted windows, pick up a latte on the way, and go down to Whole Foods, and wearing your dark glasses so no one can see you, and and go through your aisles and pick up all your hermetically sealed foods and your prepared foods and your apples and plastic bags and your uh you know bottled canned things, your anti shells, everything else is on the shelf. It was easy to do that when you're an individual, but when you're gonna have to make that stuff yourself, when you're gonna have to can your own pickles if you want pickles, and you have to, cook tomatoes all day if you want tomato sauce, which is unbelievably good, by the way. Um, and you're not gonna have to do this all for yourself, and you may not have 10 kinds of bagels on the shelf. You might have one kind of bagel because you just made bagels today. You want a bagels? I would love to have a bagel. I'm going to make bagels today. All right, watch me make bagels. Okay, come around here, children. We're all going to make bagels. Yes, you got dough all over your face, and you're the miracle of baking. Look at these bagels come out of here, and now we have to boil them in the water, and we have to put the sprinkles on them, and now we're going to eat the bagels. And we made a lot. Let's take some over to the family next door because they gave us pieces of pie yesterday. So now we're going to share our bagels with them. We made more than enough. And sounds terrible, doesn't it? Who has time for that? In the absence of fossil fuels, you're not going to have anything but time. Figure it out, people. And the cities and the counties can help us. If they could free themselves of the Chamber of Commerce, what are the odds? I don't know. So maybe we end up getting kind of this watered down net zero. Here's some free twisty bulbs for your lamps, and here's a brochure on how to do gray water recycling. Here's another brochure on how to minimize food waste, and here's some videos you can watch on green lifestyle choices. We'll get to net zero. We don't really get to net zero. Then we'll have the accountants do some fraud, because it's just, we all want to be friends. We'll have some accountants do some fraud over here, and we'll do some lying over there. We'll get to net zero. We'll feel great about ourselves. We'll all hold hands, sing Kumbaya, and go down to Starbucks and get a latte. Or we can just go commando and just go zero. Okay. Zero is the number. There is no other number. Thou shalt have zero. Thou shalt not have one. Thou shalt not have 1.5. Thou shalt have zero. Okay. That's the goal. Not net zero, not carbon neutral, not zero would be great. Not, we have to do some fancy accounting here. Zero. No fossil fuel consumptions. And you'll know when you've arrived when there are no fossil fuels being delivered to your community, and there are no vehicles running fossil fuels up and down your roads, and there are no vehicles on your roads, and no one in your community ever goes anywhere. Nobody in your community ever leaves. And you're all in your community, and you're watching after each other, and you're raising each other's children, and you're raising the food, and you're processing the food together. You're eating meals together. And that's the day when you can sit there when your belly is full and you just had a great meal, and you look around the table and he says, hey, you know what, folks? I'm calling it. I'm calling it. We've arrived. What do you think? Do you think we've arrived? Are we zero? I think we're zero. I'm calling it. Anybody here with me? You're all with me? If you think we're at zero, raise your hand. All around the table, everyone's got their hands up. Everyone's laughing. Everyone's happy. We've arrived. Don't tell me we can't do this. Don't pretend you don't understand. Don't pretend you don't want this. You want this. Oh, yeah, you want this. You know you do. You know you do. Make it happen. Figure it out. You're going to need an engineer. You're going to need me. I'm not available. You're going to need an engineer. Figure it out. Zero. That's the number.